is sponsored by Sue Minahan.
Welcome to Talk Cosmos, the show where Sue Minahan and her panel of guests bring you insightful conversations to awaken consciousness for soul growth. Come journey with us through astrology's energetic cycles and get ready to understand your path in the cosmic roots of the stars.
I'm Sue Minahan, host and founder of Talk Cosmos Insightful Conversations, and we awaken consciousness. Today is the 7th of April. It's been many years now, since 2018, since we started this weekly, just about on this birthday. It was on the 6th. No, it was today. It was on the 7th. So, hallelujah. Happy birthday, Talk Cosmos. I hadn't thought of that till this moment. It's inspiration. We know that Mercury is retrograde. It is in Aries. It's forging us ahead and looking backward at the same time. I'm not sure what kind of driving expertise that takes, but we're learning. And also the big news everywhere, shouting across the housetops and across the fields and oceans, is this illustrious eclipse happening tomorrow on the 8th. That'll go smack dab across the United States and Mexico. And it's a total one. It's right in the very middle. It's going to be a long one, over 4 minutes. We're not here exactly to talk about it in every little detail, except, of course, it is highlighted because we are the new moon. And the new moon, when it is in eclipse, is a solar eclipse. So the sun is getting blotted out. The lights are going bananas, shading out, and inner darkness speaks to illuminate again our vision and path. So with that said, there's so much more to say, but I do have a most special panel here, the Archetypal Symbols panel, and we look at things from many directions in order to give a total picture. So thank you, and we are now ready for Archetypal Symbols.
Synthesizing the new moon consciousness through archetypal Sabian symbols, numerology, lunar mansions, tarot, and astrology, all together illuminating a new moon vision story. This is your Archetypal Symbols panel.
I am Sue Minahan, founder of Talk Cosmos since 2018, an evolutionary astrologer and student of vibrational astrology, a consultant, workshop facilitator, lecture speaker, writer, Dwarf Planet University graduate, charter member of Kepler Astrology Toastmaster Club, hold an AA degree and Associate of Fine Arts Music degree, and Certificate of Fine Arts in Jazz. I'm an artist, musician, mythologist, and pursue esoteric philosophies.
I'm Elizabeth Liz Machette, a professional astrologer, intuitive, numerologist, and tarot reader. I'm a certified sacred healing counselor, providing nurturing, in-depth consultations for individuals and couples. I'm an author, blogger, speaker, and international Reiki master and teacher. I create safe space in which to explore the deeper patterns of your life, to clarify your current circumstances and help you find your best path forward.
And I'm Justin Crocodelsy, an archetypal Jyotish astrologer, yoga and meditation teacher, and author. I combine both Western ancient astrology and modern psychological astrology with Eastern Vedic astrology, and I specialize in predictive, electional, and karmic astrology for individuals and couples. I also do in-depth astrological research into arcane astrological concepts, focusing on the mystical, occult side of astrology.
Eleanor Roosevelt once said, "Yesterday is history, tomorrow is a mystery, and today is a gift." And that's why it's called the present. Hello, birthday folk. That's to Talk Cosmos with Justin and Liz. It is. In fact, Liz was on the very first show. So Liz, thank you very much for helping me inaugurate, that's it, this challenging, wonderful, expansive journey. And we're on to more. We are on to more. Each one of us and collectively. And wow, what a journey it'll be. So, any thoughts before we begin?
It's a pleasure to be here, and happy birthday to Talk Cosmos. And
my 6 years of being on the radio and YouTube
Yeah.
now, and
Into
it's
our
been a
7th
journey.
season. Yes, indeed. I know. Isn't life? Okay, we won't reflect. We'll just plow ahead. Aries like, yeah, that's what we're doing. Okay. Again, folks, and I always think I have it dark, but Elizabeth Liz Mouchette is at alightpath.com. Justin Crockett Elsie is at his name, justincrockettelsey.com. And he has an email too, which we will learn later in the show. And myself, Talk Cosmos. So we have here, I know we can go forward. Yes, a little bit of retrograde happening here. All right. The solar eclipse. Astronomically, when the path of the sun and the moon are within, when the degrees of the sun and moon are within, a new moon is within 12 degrees of the nodes, that's the meeting of their path, the moon and the sun, we have an eclipse. The closer in range, it's a long span over, the Saros cycle is a 1,200-year cycle. It's 18 years before the one, many cycles into one. The point being that it needs to be within this 12 degrees. So right now, as we will see, it's very close, and it is a total one. It's 19 degrees and 24 minutes of Aries. Life is renewing. Aries is fire, drive, action. It's assertive. And it's our identity. It's the very first house in the zodiac. The dominance is you get too full of yourself, right? At any time, we need to be tempered by love and by consideration of others. We need a whole dialogue of energies, but it is very important to have that ego and that self to rise ahead and meet the challenges of life. But generally, I would say, and I think Liz and Justin would agree, that it is a cycle. An eclipse represents a transition point. So we're going to be renewing or beginning again. Do either of you love to hear your thoughts?
Well, the sun is exalted at 19 degrees of Aries, and the sun is exalted in the sign of Aries. So this solar eclipse new moon is very powerful and potent.
Yeah, and to the point there that solar eclipses portend the end of cycles and beginning of cycles. So that's
Wonderful.
what the meaning is there.
So we do need a lot of bravery. It's always hard to let go of something unless we get so enthused about what's coming ahead. And it's not always clear, although I think there's a lot of vision involved with this and healing, as we'll see. So thank you. Those are concrete, and I love it, grounded ideas of how to realize it. Have faith.
It's important to release and let go of what no longer serves us to make room for the new.
But it's and it's also important to focus on ourselves at this point, because Aries is about self. So this is, and because it's conjunct Chiron, this is an okay time to focus just on yourself and self-healing. And so really focus there.
Yes, so that we can serve life better, can't we? And the numerology assists us. If we break those two numbers apart, 1 is leadership and 9 is completion. So it's really endings and beginnings. Liz and Justin?
Yeah, finishing up the cycle to begin anew. I love it.
So we, both of you are saying, we need to be that leader, that creativity. There is support from the universe. And I think that's really what archetypal symbols demonstrates with every presentation. Stay with us through the whole program. You'll see how it all ties together. The mirror keeps reflecting itself to assist us. And here, the arcana in the tarot is number 4, which is a major arcana for those that most of us know. The tarot, there's the major and the minor. But here it does. Go ahead, Liz.
It corresponds to the sign Aries, which is about authority, leadership, and strategic thinking. And the shadow side would be controlling.
Yes, when we only think about ourselves, because there's always a polarity. There's somebody and somebody else. And usually when we're doing something for ourselves, it somehow does involve somebody else. If it's a creative thing, you want to present it to other people. If it's a change, it's going to affect other people. So it's Justin, anything? No.
Well, she got it covered.
The minor arcana, though, perhaps you can help us out here. There are the.
Do you want to start, Justin?
No, you go ahead. You go ahead.
So we have 3 cards in the minor arcana. The 2 of Wands is Mars and Aries, and it's the Lord of Dominion. Then we have the 3 of Wands, which is the Sun in Aries, the Lord of Established Strength, and the 4 of Wands, Venus in Aries, the Lord of Abundance.
Could you explain a little bit? Like Dominion makes sense with Mars. Established strength makes sense with Sun, and is established. It's the Sun. It rules everything. And there is courage and strength. And abundance, Taurus, growth. I mean, not growth in the sense of Jupiter, but growth in the sense of fertility, Earth, sprouting and that and survival of it. Is there anything more that you can explain, just briefly speaking?
Not me. What about you, Justin?
No, I think they speak for themselves, actually. So.
All right. Well, onward. Here we have the Yorish lunar mansions called the Nakshakras, and they are the constellations of the stars in the Eastern philosophies, which is really a brother and sister to Western astrology. If it weren't for the Eastern Vedic astrologers, especially in the Middle East during their golden era, which was our dark era, we wouldn't have astrology because they really promoted it for hundreds of years. So they do relate very much, and Justin studies both of them. And one factor here is that it has everything to do about stories. The constellations have stories. Go ahead, Justin.
Yeah, so in Jyotish, it's Jyotish. In Jyotish astrology here, what we're really talking about here is the same constellation that the moon is in. It's just we're diving deeper into the constellation, the sign, and looking at the fixed stars that are in that constellation and the concept stories and mythologies around them and what the meanings are as we get deeper into the constellation that the moon is traveling through. And so this is what's called the lunar mansion, or the mansion where the moon's traveling through. So on the next slide,
if I might add, though, just a padas mean that it's a section. It's just
they're each divided up into 4 sections, exactly. Four padas, just like there's deacons that divide up, and we can take that back to the Egyptians. This is the Hindu. So in this particular new moon, the nakshatra, which the moon is traveling through, is called Rafti. And it's in the 3rd section, or 3rd pod of Rafti. And Rafti is a nakshatra that's ruled by one of the Vedic solar deities, solar gods. But this particular solar god is related to nourishing or nourishment. So it's and protection. This is a god that protects the animals. This is the nurturing sun, or the nurturing aspect of the sun. So it's nourishing and protecting form of the sun god. The ruling planet is Mercury for this nakshatra, and the ruling deity is Pushana, which is one of the solar gods. The symbol is a drum or a pair of fish, and the basis above, as we say, is above below. The basis above on this is cows, because cows then nourish calves, and that's the basis below, cows and calves. So this is what we're talking about here with this. This solar eclipse, again, back to self. This is a great time to nurture self, and I think, as we'll see as we get into the rest of the Sabian symbols, we'll start to see this word nourishment, or nourishing and taking care of oneself and healing oneself, comes out. So that's it.
Thank you. Yeah, Aries actually has a lot to do with nourishment also. In Western mythology, there's a famous story, the Golden Fleece. And the Golden Fleece begins actually with the birth of a ram and a calf, and a small, with between a ewe and a ram, because in mythology, beautiful maidens were often desired by the gods. Might say that they're very much akin to that consciousness. This is how I see it. So this one beautiful maiden was desired by Poseidon, that rules the ocean, as behind me. But in doing so, he went to an island, and men came there, to the point being he had to protect himself and become a ram, and she ewe, from the people that came to the island in pursuit of her, and because she had many suitors, and they were killing the cattle. He had made all the people cattle, therefore he made them wolves. But the point being, they had the Golden Fleece, they had the ram, and subsequently this gift, the ram could fly. There were two children of the clouds. In other words, there's a lot of mystical energies here who had two children, a son and daughter, and left. Clouds leave. You could say clouds are nebulous. They're like transitions between this and that. And they also bring water and into the nourishment, into the air to feed. So the cloud goddess sent the ram to collect the two children who had been wandering in the forest, to go to the land of the son of the sun. That's S-O-N of the S-U-N. It was a long journey. The daughter fell off, and you might say fell back to be supported by the ocean, by the timelessness of the ever-giving fractions, whereas the sun constitutes that energy that you're seen in. It evolves much further. There is the Golden Fleece. There is Jason. It's a very involved, very much in-depth story that's taken me a fair amount of time to interpret and look at. But the fact is, it remains that there was this nourishment to protect these children, and there's also this identity that to be found. So it does, and along with Pushan, the solar god, it's most fascinating how one story can lend itself to the other. But then back at that time, these cultures were connected, actually. So it's a fascinating development. Do you have any other comments, either of you?
No.
Sabian symbols.
They were channeled by spiritualist medium Elsie Wheeler with the assistance of astrologer Mark Edmund Jones in 1925. There's 360 degrees to the astrological chart, and there's 360 Sabian symbols, or archetypal symbols, we could call them. So you can go to the next slide.
Well, to find the Sabian symbol, we round it off. We go to the next degree. So here we have the past, present, and future. But in our case, we're going to do 4. We're going to do the past, the present, the Sabian, which is rounded off, and then the future. So it's a whole picture of itself. And here we are. This is the chart. We're using the Eastern Coast chart located in Washington, D.C. It's a political year. We're going to keep focused on this particular chart. And in this case, at this particular time, which is 2:21 p.m., that's tomorrow in the afternoon, and there will be times around the world that we will give later, but the ascendant is in Leo. It's being ruled by the sun. And the MC is in Taurus, which is ruled by Venus, and the actual new moon eclipse is in Aries at 19 degrees, as we have discussed, and is ruled by Mars. So most interesting, Mars and Venus, the cosmic lovers are very potent in our particular chart, and the sun of our ego. So we're all experiencing a great transition, I would say, here. But we will be looking at these Sabian symbols for all of these degrees. I can go to the next unless somebody has a thought.
Yes, that's fine.
So beginning with the ascendant, we're going to go between 15 to 18 degrees. And we're not going to read all these, but we're going to just, at best to our ability, and people can always go back and look at this more in detail. But generally, it's a pageant from the past. And there's cheering people. So it's releasing these energies, and it's dramatizing this unconscious aspirations, which is very instinctive and primal to us. And it's a demonstration. Liz?
In the present Leo 16, a storm ended, and the brilliant sunshine, the joy and power of new beginnings. Justin?
And the Sabian of which we're moving towards here is a volunteer church choir singing religious hymns. And really, this is the key word here is togetherness.
Go ahead, Justin. You can finish us if you'd like.
Well, go ahead. You go with the fourth one, because I wasn't really sure why we did the fourth one, to be honest with you. Because
because for us, it's always, it's in 16 and the next is 17, which is a Sabian, but then
that's what's going towards this 17.
There's a further development. So we're looking at a larger arc. That's all. So I will say there's an alchemist, and it's an experiment. So isn't this interesting? This is really what we're doing. We don't know what the unknown is. When the lights go out with an eclipse, it opens up a new vista. And that's really where we've let go of something, and we learn what that was as we begin to experience this new vision and going ahead. And here it is, a hidden process, and it's the thrill of that discovery. It's alchemy. So the MC, if we go past in Taurus, which is an earth sign, it's the woman of Samaria, which is very ancient times at the ancestral well. In fact, that could be, I think, where Jesus was with the woman. It reminds me of, the great, not Reuben, but not Michelangelo, Sue. Anyway, my artists are leaving me. I know who, anyway, an artist.
And then the present is a sleigh.
And creative happening together, new quality. Go ahead.
A sleigh is uncovered by snow, a future-oriented imagination.
And the Sabian Taurus 9, which is what we're working towards, is a fully decorated Christmas tree, which is just this faith in cyclic renewal.
And then the farther out future is a Red Cross nurse, consecration to humanity.
So perhaps that would have, with the end result, if we continue on this path, having that faith, this new quality that we wanted to have, and there's some compassion. Isn't that wonderful? Because we came out of Pisces. Here we have the new moon itself, the eclipse at 19 degrees, and I think it's 24 minutes of Aries. And the past, I didn't write that down, but it's at 18 degrees. It's an empty hammock, and it's stretched between two trees. So it's getting ready to live rhythmically, and it's alternating between rest and activity. So let's go ahead, Liz.
The magic carpet. Strife, transcending an unattached outlook upon everyday reality.
And then Aries 20, which is what we're working towards or going towards here in the future, is a young girl feeding birds in water, which is really basically as we're looking at life situations, overcoming or navigating these life situations with love and compassion.
We would call that also the Sabian, because usually you're right. I mean, I know we're altering among the three of us. We have different views of the four, but the fact is that the Sabian
But that's what we're working towards. That's what we're working towards.
Yeah,
Passion,
well, it is.
love, and
Yeah.
and navigating life situations. Yes.
And from that, we're working towards a pugilist. Is that how you say it? Who enters the ring?
Pugilist.
Pugilist. Okay, we pronounce the G. But it's releasing and glorifying this social aggressiveness, this overwhelming power. And to be honest, that is part of what we're doing presently. Is the challenge here is to overcome the strife in order to be creative. It's that transmutation that we're really looking at right now, of love into love, which is the whole key. Liz, do you have some comments here to tie this together?
Well, it's like we're just moving through the rhythms of life and imagining a new beginning, and coming from love and trying not to be overcome by the power.
Yeah, it's always reminds me of The Ring, right? The hobbits. Got to be careful of what power we have for anything. Here we have all the words, and I'm going to leave it to the both of you. Please just express how you would.
Well, a lot of it talked about new beginnings and being in joy and love and togetherness and having a vision. So, I mean, they kind of all speak to the same part, in my opinion. What about you, Justin?
Yeah, I would agree. I think the ascendant showing how we're moving forward into this situation at the moment of the solar eclipse is really sort of this looking at a new beginning here with this togetherness with others. We're all watching an eclipse, and of course, what we're trying to work towards is sort of being present in the moment and having faith and our fellow man that every person's good at their basic. Every person's basically good, and then what we're kind of coming out of this is really, as we were talking about before, is really focusing ourselves and living in a very much more balanced way, rhythmically way, and kind of, how do I say, kind of stepping back and observing things, what's going on in the collective, and kind of sometimes take an observer, unattached approach to it. And then, of course, just leaning into the situation with power and love and where we're moving forward with, I would say.
A great alchemy. Thank you so much. It is truly transcending what has bothered into creativity. Well, we are now ready for our little break, and we'll come back with Archetypal Symbols panel with Justin Crockett, Elsie, Elizabeth Taylor, Elizabeth Mouchette, our famed lady, and myself, Sue Minahan. We'll be back. Hear us. Thanks. Bye. While we take a break from this week's edition of Talk Cosmos, let's take a look at this cycle's archetype. We're currently in the period of Aries. By leaving a cycle based upon completion, the energy of Aries sparks initiation, creating action to separate into a new cycle of life. It's a fire sign, which means it will involve great emotion. And because separation may create resistance, it also takes great courage to break away to new ways of becoming.
This is Martha Norwalk, every Sunday morning beginning at 9 a.m. Thanks in part to Natasha Venter at intuitiveclarifications.com, we cover the world of animals. This week, April 14th, it's Best Neuroenergetic Balancing, Rasmussen Reset, and Energy Codes Sunday. Dr. Nels Rasmussen and Sister Linda Rasmussen join us. Together, they'll take your phone calls and help you or your animal friends with emotional, behavioral, or physical issues. Hope you can join us for Martha Norwalk's Animal World, Sunday morning, 9 a.m. to noon, right here on Alternative Talk, AM 1150.
Talk Cosmos brings insightful conversations to awaken consciousness for the soul growth with hour-long programs every Sunday at 1 p.m. Pacific on KKNW. Talk Cosmos weekly programs are also available to watch live on the Talk Cosmos YouTube channel and Facebook page. While you're there, make sure you click the like and subscribe buttons so you get the full Talk Cosmos experience. Or if you'd rather listen to the show archives with audio only, the entire podcast collection since 2018 is available on most podcast carriers. And to find out about upcoming programs, sign up for the newsletter at talkcosmos.com. So grab your coffee, tea, or kombucha and enjoy the show.
On the path to good health and well-being, Alternative Talk 1150 is the station for you.
Welcome back, everybody. This is the day before the big total eclipse going across the United States. And I have Justin Crockett-Elsie and Elizabeth Liz Mouchette with me. We're going to find out a little bit what's in their world. We'll begin with Liz. I know that she has initiated this great new YouTube series. So it's indicative of new beginnings, folks. Liz, let's find out.
Yes, I've been doing a weekly show and 2 with Justin, the full moon forecast and the monthly forecast, and then Astrology Star Sisters Talk Over Tea with Sue. And then I post our show that we're doing today on there. So there's basically one for every week. And more to come soon.
Yes, indeed. I know, I think these are last months, but we're doing one about Jupiter and Uranus, such as I'm also going to do this next week. It's very exciting.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I'd love to listen to both of you too. So wonderful. And that would be at YouTube. So it's at Elizabeth Liz Mouchette. Just put in Liz Mouchette. You'll find it.
Thank you.
Yes. And Justin, you're getting active with Instagram. Let's find out. What are you doing?
Yeah, I do a monthly Mars forecast on the beginning of the month on Instagram, and looking at what Mars is doing for the month, as it's an important planet to track because it relates to how we're all trying to move forward and take action. And then I also do starting a weekly lunar forecast, looking at the moon just throughout the week, focusing on the nakshatras and lunar mansions. And then I'm also starting an Ask the Astrologer series on Instagram. So people can find me at Astrological Yogi on Instagram.
Yes. And his email is justin.lc@gmail.com. And if all is lost, of course, his name is his website. But this is on Instagram. Well, good luck. It's very exciting I love success, and we're all moving ahead. For myself, I've been writing blogs every week. And the last one was about the solar eclipse. Prior to that was the lunar. And then, of course, spring equinox. It's Aries times. It's like pushing ahead. And this week, it'll be, of course, about this new conjunction coming up, which is Jupiter and Uranus once every 84 years in Taurus. But it's not so much factual. It's more philosophical. It's my viewpoint. It's like, hello, Sue. This is what I'm thinking now. So you get a little bit of extra from me. And do join. In fact, I'm becoming updated, and I've got a QR code. You can just zap that and find Talk Cosmos. Join us, sign up, and we'll connect with you. Things are going to, did we lose Justin? He'll be back. Oh, goody. Well, that was the lights going out. Did you do that on purpose? That was a prelude to the eclipse. I love it. Oh, no. He's gone again. Okay, well, we're having double eclipse. Liz, here we are. This is the time zones for the next around the world. And you will see that it moves across the world with a different ascendant. And that's the point. We're going to show how it's actually in your chart in a different house. So if we're here in Hawaii, we have a Taurus-based ascendant that's going to be focusing on the Venus archetype. Hello, boy, you're doing an eclipse with us. Actually, I think Justin's going around the world checking out all these different ascendants, and that's what I was talking about. So here in Hawaii on the 8th, because the sun goes west to east, so it's going to start off at 8:21 in the morning here, in Taurus with Venus looking at your survival and resources. And it's going to go to the West Coast there in Seattle in Cancer, which is the new moon itself. It's going to be protection and all the archetypal things of, in other words, the sun will be in different locations. On the East Coast, it's the other part of the new moon. It's going to be with the sun itself in Leo. If we go to Europe, where time begins, as far as the Greenwich, it's going to be in Venus, which is our south node, really, that's related there. Further, in the next day, according to us, but not for them, down under over there in Australia, it's going to be in the morning on the next day. And it's actually going to be in Pisces. It hasn't quite entered. It's moving. Here, I won't go into all these. We can do this together. But it shows the quadrants. And I made a little error, Liz. It'll be for England, where it's universal time, it's going to be in the third quadrant. So apologies. I'll try to correct that when we present, when the live goes. Anyway, I'll correct it later. So here in Hawaii, it's in these fourth quadrants, though, are in the 11th and the 10th house. And what I find interesting, and I'll let you both, if you would like to comment, I'd love it, is to see how, if it's because we have a Taurus ascendant, we're in a sextile relationship with that with that new moon. Whereas it changes in its dynamics, how we look at that new moon. So maybe we're nourishing in a sextile way that how to protect ourselves. I know since the fires last summer, Hawaii is really looking at very much our resources and how are we operating, with the people here that are Hawaiian. Justin and Liz, you want to go ahead with?
Well, I would just say, like, depending on your location, like if you're in Hawaii, the eclipse in an astrology chart would be in the 11th house about networking. And if you're at Pacific time, it'd be in the 10th house of social status. And Eastern is the 9th house about beliefs. Universal time is the 7th house of relationships. And Australia is the 1st house of self.
Yes, very good. And actually with the West Coast, it's going to be in a square. It's going to be a lot of action because it's Aries and Cancer. It's like, how am I going to, that self-survival, with how am I protecting myself and what is important with my tribal group. And on the East Coast, it's going to be a trine. It's going to be that Leo, a forward action of identity. But over in Europe, it's really a self and others. And you just think of the political structure of the world, and we are changing. Over there, they have wars and their relationship with the other worlds. So it's very interesting how astrocartography wise, and this is in the Porphyry house system, how things shift. So if we're going to relate with people, it's important to realize their identity, that their environment is, particularly because Mercury is retrograde in Aries right now, how we see things is a little individualistic. There are some observations. Mars is ruling the solar eclipse, also rules Mercury right now, both in Aries, and Mercury is retrograde and will be from the 1st to the 25th in later degrees. It starts, I think, from 27 down to 19, is it? I'm not sure. I didn't check that, but we'll be talking about that in later shows. Out of bounds, Vesta, our hearth and home in Cancer, and Ceres, not very much, but nurturing, from grief to claiming that nurturing. Justin, I think we both, and Liz, we have ideas about, rather than me just speaking about how that relates to whether the chakras or all of it, it sort of ties together these, just Vesta and Ceres.
Well, the nurturing part is very much so, but go ahead, Justin.
Yeah, no, that's what I was going to point out. I think, when we look at this solar eclipse, as much as it's about ourselves, it's also about our relationships. And I know Liz has some really great concepts about out of bounds and how these two asteroids, goddess asteroids, which relate to our home and nurturing, how we get nurtured from others. So I think this is how the nourishment comes in, and when these are out of bounds, that people are out to go outside the boundaries of nourishment, and how these asteroids may go above and beyond or not enough. So that's all I would say about that.
Yeah. It's a very intense, the planets are so tight. They're between Pisces and Taurus, which is always in one section. It's like very tight, called a bundle. It's extreme focus. Mark Edmund Jones, the one that did the Sabians, came up with these 7 planetary patterns. And right now, it continues to have Pluto as a lead planet, which is transformation. So we're all in this transition. It's very powerful.
Yeah,
But
I was saying that Liz actually pointed out yesterday that after I said that all the planets, with the exception of Pluto, are all in these 3 signs. So we're dealing in that area of the sky, which is, Pisces, Aries, and Taurus. And Liz did point out they're all within 70. There's a 70-degree window here. So that's where a lot of the focus of this energy is at, especially with the solar eclipse.
And that's what a bundle is when it's that tight, because there's other patterns, a bowl, etc. Exactly. Good points for the details.
And we could call Pluto the singleton because it's out of that group. I mean, it's still close enough to be a bundle, but it's still far enough away from all those other planets that are bundled together. So it's a singleton right now.
It is, although I will say that we'll note that it's also sextile to Venus, I believe. So isn't that wonderful? We're looking at our values, and again, Venus rules both Libra and Taurus. So of course, it's not just relationships, it's a whole spectrum. It's our relationships, it's our survival of self, which has everything to do with Aries before it, our identity. Although in Venus, it's more our resources and our survival, our self actualization, you could say. So Uranus is going to shift the boards. It's going to shift things up in a week, a couple of weeks. On the 20th, it conjuncts Jupiter. So things are bouncing along. Okay. Well, we have
this chart, we have a lot of conjunctions here. So that's really an interesting point, I feel, with, the North Node, the Sun and the Moon, Chiron, Eris, and Mercury all in Aries. So we have this big bundle of planets that are pretty close to each other.
They are really
and I would point out that Chiron is exact degrees with the Moon and the Sun with us. That trifecta right there, those 3. The Chiron's actually 19 degrees as well.
Yeah, the health. We've mentioned this over and over. Let's just explode on this whole idea. Explode among ourselves, because it really is this what is healing? What is health? Hygeia, the asteroid, is right next to Venus. So we have these intense connections, like little birth points that we're trying to incorporate. Yes.
But I think that there's a big opportunity for a lot of healing to occur. It's like to have better relationships with people, have better communication with people, of how we speak, that instead of, and even speaking to ourselves, because sometimes we're our own worst enemy. It's like, speak with kindness to ourselves and to others. It's huge, I believe.
That is the fundamental part. I think in our pre-chat, it was brought out, Justin, you brought it out, that universally, we're all dealing with our own identity to a core point that, of course, is in relationship with others. But that part of ourself, shedding those old stories, I'm elaborating on this, whether we brought it up or not, but we're having a conversation now. This is the bulk of our conversation, is tying all this together. And it is really, how are we allowing ourselves to get past what restrictions we may have had, because it's that new moon, of course, is opposing the South Node in Libra, and everything has its shadow. Maybe we've gone too far to the other side of somebody else's identity and we haven't spoken our truth.
Yeah, and Chiron in Aries, for those that are just learning astrology, Chiron, which is the wound in life, when it's in Aries, it's about the wound of self and valuing oneself. And so I think this is a great time to pay particular attention to how we're not valuing ourselves, and how can we value ourselves better, or to nourish ourselves here. So it's a good time to think about, are we being valued, and in that, are we valuing ourselves?
Well, and if we don't value ourselves, how do we expect other people to value us?
That's right. And then we fall into that projection where Libra, unfortunately, because they're so oriented with the other, thinks that person is doing such and such, not realizing the only reason they see that critically is because they themselves hold that in some way. It's a very difficult glass house to shatter, is your own glass house with your own stone. It's like just making those. But the beautiful part about it, I just realized, is that then you can make a mosaic of all those different colors of the glass and make a new picture. Here,
Mars and Saturn are also conjunct in Pisces, and I think that'll be exact in a couple of days, if I remember right. I think on the 10th.
Yeah. Ceres, looking at this chart, as for those people, you can see that cross. I mean, there could be different ways to do a T-square, but that's what it's called, is because, as we'd indicated earlier, Ceres, who's a dwarf planet, also called an asteroid, but she's a dwarf planet. She's on the inner realm, not with the other dwarf planets, but between Mars and Jupiter. And nurturing, because she is the astrology is about grief. She lost her daughter. It all has to do about agriculture and the cycles of birth and rebirth. And it's our birth and rebirth. And it is that process of taking what grieves us and finding a way to be creative about it. Making lemonade out of the lemons, or making a beautiful picture or poetry, or deeper yet, a purpose that serves other people. I am just not trying to lock in anything. I'm just only trying to be expansive.
Well, and whatever that grief comes from, it's like maybe journal or get some help with it. With this new moon, it's a big opportunity to heal some of that grief.
Yes.
Yeah, and I would also say Ceres and Capricorn is, and it's not just grief, but it's also where if we have Ceres and Capricorn, we strive for stability in groups. It's always looking for that authority, that stability, that structure. Capricorn structure. And so the fact that it's T-squaring the nodes here in the new moon and that about self and relationships, this could be a time when we actually have some relationships change, and it's changing our structure in our group structure. And so we may have some friends that we kind of say, well, that person's not valuing me anymore. I'm going to leave that person, or I'm going to leave that group because I'm not feeling valued. So it's asking us to evaluate our relationships, but then at the same time changes how our series is reacting and looking for that authority and structure and stability in a group. So this could be the time when you say, you know what, I'm going to join a new group, or I'm going to evaluate relationships. And there could be some dynamics there, being Capricorn and Aries and Libra, to where there may be a little bit of tension with that. But it's something I think that we're learning to work through here.
And that goes along with what I said, that sometimes we have to release things to let in the new, because it could be upsetting at first, but sometimes when you move through it, what's on the other side is so much grander and bigger and better.
It is part of that unknown, just like the eclipse. It shuts everything down, and perhaps our focus was on one thing, but when the lights come back on, we see something different, just like when lightning comes. It's the same idea. It breaks everything apart. So it really is exciting to consider. I love this idea of the authority within, because maybe we've given our authority just to somebody else, and for perhaps our stories supported that, but now we can shift those stories. We have Mercury retrograde in Aries, so it's the same during this entire time. It's shifting how we're looking forward and backwards, how we're moving.
And
Absolutely.
I think, to Liz's point, we didn't talk much about it, but that Mars-Saturn conjunction in Pisces is bringing a certain level of tension with what our fantasy is and what we've wanting to imagine maybe within our relationships or maybe within ourselves. And so I think the and I know Liz could speak to this, but that Mars, I think Saturn conjunction in Pisces is kind of waking us up a little bit to some things there, and so there's needing to be some action that's being taken here.
And if nothing else, that is a singleton in a sense, a singleton a pair, you could say. I don't know if that's technologically correct, but the fact is there's inconjuncts, meaning but Ptolemaic, yes, thank you very much. It is still pretty isolated, meaning it isn't isolated. I don't want people to think that, but it is tricky, as you're saying. It's not an easy flow or just an easy connection with other parts of ourself, because really Mars and Saturn, when they're put together with vibrational astrology, you do the dirty work. You are okay with doing the nitty gritty work. It's action and it's what's essential. And that's not always such an easy path to find, but it is a dedicated one. And I think that is the big goal. You're right. It's like hanging out there.
Well, it just means that if you're going to take that action, you're going to encounter some limitations as well. So it's doing the hard work, and there's going to be some limitations and working through some things. What are you going to say about that, Liz?
Well, I suspect that if there's been some secrets or shady stuff going on below the surface when Mars and Saturn meet, that those are going to be exposed. That's what I'm going to say.
Yeah.
Well, I guess that helps us see the whole picture a little bit, or why something wasn't working, or if it was our part. Because when secrets are held, sometimes it's we're fooling ourselves or fooling other people. Sometimes there's many reasons why there's secrets, so that's interesting. And then we have, go ahead, but I was going to say about Jupiter and Uranus there, that are actually on the 20th of April being conjunct, which they are. The last time was back in 2011 in Aries Pisces on that cusp. And then in 1941 was the last time they were in Taurus. But Ceres is working in two areas. She's supporting those changes as she's activating.
I was just talking yesterday with Liz about Jupiter-Uranus conjunctions and how it shows up in people's charts. And I do think that with the energy we've been feeling with Uranus, that it exponentially grows, this bubble. It'll be almost like over the top a little bit that this Uranus reacts in Taurus. So definitely a time when we may see some things happen in the financial markets a little bit with this. But it could be that people kind of go off in left field and buy a house that they weren't even, really making a decision about. It's kind of out, as Liz likes to say, out of bounds. There's an out of bounds aspect here with the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction. And if it's in Taurus, it's dealing with resources. So there could be some out of bounds, where we maybe might spend a little bit more than usual, or, what do you think, Liz?
Or your investments could bring you more returns than you anticipated.
Yeah.
I like that one better. And then Vesta is square to Venus and Hygeia, another aspect, because this new moon doesn't have a ton of aspects. Oh, we're already done?
Oh, I know. Here is the other one, and there's a review, folks, and a little bit of a playlist, but we'll just have the three of us for the last minute. We can do this. So with Strife through, what were we? We were, thank you,
Transcending.
Justin.
Transcending.
Yes,
Strife.
transcending strife.
And
It's just
nourish
like
yourself.
Yes, like the water, it comes up, it comes that cloud, and it carries us someplace to a new identity where the sun shines, but we live and die and in our phases to rebirth. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you, Kristen and Liz. Stay tuned.
Thank you for joining an insightful conversation on Talk Cosmos, the show where Sue Rose Minahan and her panel of guests awaken consciousness by connecting soul growth patterns with astrology's energetic cycles. Be sure to tune in next Sunday, 1 p.m. Pacific Time, to continue your journey through the roots of the cosmic pathway.
The views expressed on this program are those of the hosts, guests, and callers